There is a man watching this right now who has been lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations in his head, trying to figure out the exact moment he lost his wife. Not to another man, not to a dramatic event, but to something far more confusing, something invisible, unnamed, and completely beyond his control. She is still there, physically. She sleeps in the same bed, sits at the same table, drives the same car. But the woman inside that body feels like a stranger, and no one, not his friends, not his family, not even the internet at 2 in the morning, has been able to explain what happened. If that is you, I need you to stay, because what I am about to share with you could save your marriage, your family, and the woman you love from a crisis that neither of you caused, but both of you are suffering through in silence. I have spent over 2 decades in clinical practice specializing in women's hormonal health, and I have sat across from hundreds of couples who walked into my office on the edge of divorce. The husband, exhausted, bewildered, sometimes angry. The wife, hollow-eyed, ashamed, sometimes unable to even articulate what she was feeling. And in almost every single case, the story began the same way. It started with a slow, creeping change that nobody could name. She used to laugh. She used to be warm. She used to reach for his hand without thinking, as naturally as breathing. She used to be the one who held everything together. The house, the children, the social calendar, the emotional architecture of the entire family. And then, somewhere around her late 30s or early 40s, something shifted. Not overnight, but close enough that it felt sudden when he finally noticed. The warmth cooled. The laughter faded. The patience that once seemed infinite began cracking under the smallest pressures. A forgotten errand became a war. A misplaced comment became an unforgivable offense. The bedroom, once a place of tenderness and closeness, became a cold, silent territory that neither of them knew how to navigate. He started walking on eggshells. She started closing doors, literally and emotionally. And the distance between them grew so wide that they could barely see each other across it anymore. Now here is the part that breaks my heart every single time I hear it, and I have heard it hundreds of times. The husband, in his confusion, starts building a story in his mind. Maybe she does not love me anymore. Maybe she has met someone else. Maybe I have done something so deeply wrong that she cannot forgive me and does not want to tell me. Maybe we have simply grown apart, the way people sometimes do, and this is just the slow, painful ending of something beautiful. And the wife, the woman on the other side of that wall of silence, she is building her own story, and it is even darker. Something is wrong with me. I am broken. I do not know why I feel this way. I do not know why I cannot stop crying over things that do not matter. I do not know why his voice, the voice I used to find so comforting, now makes me want to scream and leave the room. I do not know why I feel nothing when he touches me. I used to love this man. I think I still do, but I cannot feel it anymore, and that terrifies me more than anything I have ever experienced. 2 people, same house, same life, same history. 2 completely different nightmares happening in perfect, devastating silence. And the tragedy, the real gut-wrenching tragedy that keeps me up at night as a physician, is that in the vast majority of these cases, neither person is doing anything wrong. What is happening between them is not a relationship failure. It is not a character flaw. It is not a loss of love. It is not betrayal. It is biology. Pure, cruel, relentless biology. And almost no one is talking about it honestly, openly, or loudly enough for the people who need to hear it most. What I am describing has a name, and that name is perimenopause. For millions of women around the world, it is the most disorienting, frightening, and profoundly misunderstood experience of their entire lives. And for the men who love them, for you, if you are watching this, it is equally devastating because you are watching someone you adore disappear right in front of your eyes, and you have absolutely no idea why, and nobody in your life is giving you the language or the framework to understand it. Let me explain what is actually happening inside her body, because I promise you, understanding this will change the way you see everything that has been unfolding in your home. Every woman is born with a finite number of eggs stored in her ovaries. Throughout her reproductive years, her body produces two primary hormones, estrogen and progesterone, in a beautiful, rhythmic, monthly cycle. But these hormones do far more than regulate her menstrual cycle. They regulate her brain, her entire emotional landscape, her sleep architecture, her ability to manage stress without breaking down, her capacity for emotional connection and warmth, her sense of identity, her ability to experience pleasure and joy. Estrogen, in particular, is one of the most powerful neurochemicals operating in the female body. It directly influences serotonin, the neurotransmitter responsible for feelings of well-being, calm, and happiness. It modulates dopamine, the chemical that drives motivation, pleasure, and the sense of reward. It protects the brain's ability to regulate body temperature, manage anxiety, maintain sharp cognitive focus, and process emotions without being overwhelmed or consumed by them. Now I need you to really sit with what I am about to say. Imagine that all of those systems she has depended on her entire adult life without even knowing they existed, systems as invisible and essential as the electrical wiring inside the walls of your house, begin to malfunction, not all at once, but in unpredictable, chaotic, terrifying waves. 1 week, her estrogen plummets to almost nothing, and she is pulled into a depression so deep and so heavy that she cannot get out of bed, cannot see a reason to try, cannot imagine feeling normal ever again. The next week it surges wildly upward, and she is flooded with anxiety so intense that her heart races for no reason, her hands tremble, her chest tightens, and she feels certain, absolutely certain, that something catastrophic is about to happen, even though nothing is wrong. Then her progesterone crashes, and suddenly she cannot sleep. Night after night after night, she lies there, bone-tired but completely wired, her mind racing with intrusive thoughts she cannot quiet or control. She finally drifts off at 4 a.m, and the alarm screams at 6, and she has to get up and function. As a mother, as a professional, as a wife, as a complete human being, running on a body and a brain that are being chemically dismantled from the inside out. This is not an exaggeration. This is not dramatization. This is the clinical reality of perimenopause for a very significant number of women, and I see it in my office every single week. It can begin as early as the mid-30s, far earlier than most people realize, and it often peaks in intensity between the ages of 40 and 50, sometimes lasting a full decade or even longer before the final menstrual period signals the arrival of full menopause. During this extended transition, her body is not simply changing, it is in a state of profound hormonal chaos, and the symptoms extend far, far beyond the hot flashes and irregular periods that most people vaguely associate with menopause. The full clinical picture is staggering in its breadth and its cruelty. Crushing, unrelenting fatigue that no amount of sleep can touch. Brain fog so thick and disorienting that she forgets common words mid-sentence, loses her keys daily, walks into rooms and stands there blankly, unable to remember why she came. Joint pain that appears seemingly out of nowhere, settling into her knees, her hips, her fingers, making her feel decades older than she actually is. Heart palpitations that send her racing to the emergency room, absolutely convinced she is having a heart attack, only to be told by a puzzled physician that every test looks perfectly normal. inexplicable weight gain that stubbornly resists every diet, every workout, every desperate measure. Skin that changes texture and sensitivity. Hair that thins and falls. A constant, low-grade feeling of dread and doom that follows her through the day like a shadow she cannot escape, coloring everything with a grayness she has never known before. And then there is perhaps the most devastating symptom of all, the one that directly strikes at the heart of her most intimate relationship, a complete, bewildering, and total loss of desire. Not just physical desire, though that is certainly part of it, but something deeper, the desire to connect, the desire to engage, the desire to care. The emotional numbness that perimenopause can inflict upon a woman is one of the most frightening things she will ever experience in her life, because she knows, she remembers with painful clarity, that she should feel something. She remembers what love felt like. She remembers what warmth felt like. She remembers wanting to be held, wanting to be close, wanting to feel the electricity of her partner's touch. But the feeling is simply gone, as though someone reached into her chest and turned off a switch she did not even know existed. And she cannot turn it back on no matter how desperately she tries. I need every husband, every partner, every man watching this to understand this next part with every fiber of his being, because it is the most important thing I will say. She is not choosing this. She did not wake up one morning and decide to stop loving you. She did not decide to become angry, or cold, or irritable, or distant, or numb. She is trapped inside a body that is actively betraying her in ways she never anticipated, and she is more frightened by what is happening to her than you are. Because you see the changes from the outside. You see the behavior, the mood swings, the withdrawal, but she feels them from the inside. You are losing the woman you knew. She is losing herself, and the grief she carries, the silent, unspoken, utterly isolating grief of watching her own identity and personality dissolve like sand through her fingers, is something most women in perimenopause never share with a single soul, not because they do not want to, but because they genuinely do not have the words, because no one ever told them this could happen to them, because society did not prepare them, the medical system did not prepare them, even their own mothers, who likely went through it themselves, often failed to pass down this knowledge, because they too endured it in silence and shame, believing it was just their personal weakness. In my years of clinical practice, I have witnessed what happens when perimenopause goes unrecognized and unaddressed. I have watched marriages that lasted 15, 20, 25 years dissolve in the space of 18 months, because no one identified the hormonal crisis at the center of the collapse. I have had men, grown men, strong, stoic men who built their entire lives around providing for and protecting their families, sit across from me and weep openly because they had spent years believing their wife had simply fallen out of love with them. They had internalized it. They had accepted it as their failure. They had grieved in silence while sleeping in the same bed as the woman they still loved. And I have had women tell me, in voices barely above a whisper, trembling with shame and desperation, that they had seriously considered leaving their husbands, not because they wanted to, not because there was anyone else, but because they felt so irreparably broken, so consumed by guilt about who they had become, that they genuinely believed their family would be better off without them, that their husband deserved someone better, someone whole, someone who could still feel. Those moments in my office shatter me, every single time. They shatter me because the suffering is so vast and so unnecessary. Not the perimenopause itself, that is biology, and it is the biological destiny of every woman who lives long enough to reach it. But the suffering that comes from not understanding what is happening, the suffering that blooms from ignorance, from silence, from shame, from isolation. That particular species of suffering is entirely preventable. And that is what I have dedicated my career to fighting. Over the years, I have watched many women begin to find genuine relief, sometimes for the first time in years, when they finally understood what was happening inside their bodies and started exploring paths that addressed the hormonal imbalance at the root of their symptoms. Something I have been sharing with my patients recently has been making a truly meaningful difference for many of them, helping them regain their equilibrium, their mental clarity, their emotional presence, and their sense of who they are. I have placed the details in the first link in the description below this video. I genuinely encourage you to take a look, whether you are a husband trying to understand how to help, or a woman who recognizes herself in everything I have described. Sometimes the right support at the right time can alter the entire trajectory of what comes next. It is not a miracle. It is not magic. But for many, it has been the beginning of a real turning point. Now, I want to speak directly to you again, to the man who has stayed, who is still here, still watching, still trying to understand what is happening in his home and in his marriage, because what you do next matters more than you can possibly realize. The single most powerful thing you can do for your wife right now is not to fix her. It is not to offer solutions, or hand her articles, or suggest supplements, or demand she see a doctor, although medical support may become important later. The most powerful thing you can do, the thing that has saved more marriages in my practice than any hormone prescription I have ever written, is to sit beside her, look her in the eyes, and say something close to this. I can see that something is happening to you. I do not fully understand it yet, but I am learning, and I need you to know that I am not going anywhere. I am not giving up on you. I am not giving up on us. Tell me what you need, and if you do not know what you need yet, that is okay. I will be here while you figure it out. We will figure it out together. Those words, or whatever version of them comes naturally from your heart, carry more healing power than you can imagine. Because what a woman in hormonal crisis needs more than anything else on this earth is to know that she is not alone in this. She needs to know that the person she loves most in this world does not see her as broken, does not see her as the enemy, does not see her as the problem to be solved. She needs to know that someone is willing to stand in the storm beside her, even when the storm makes no sense, even when it is exhausting and painful and unfair, even when it feels like it will stretch on forever. And I will tell you something I have observed consistently over many years and many couples. The marriages that survive perimenopause, and not just survive it, but emerge stronger, deeper, more honest, and more intimate than they ever were before, are the marriages where the husband chose to educate himself, where he read, where he asked questions, where he went to doctor's appointments with her, where he held space for the ugly, confusing, devastating days without interpreting her symptoms as personal attacks against him. The men who learn that her irritability is not about them, that her withdrawal is not rejection, that her tears are not manipulation, that her coldness is not cruelty. Those men become anchors. They become the fixed point in a world that has become terrifyingly unstable for the woman they love. And when the storm eventually passes, and I need you to hear this, because it does pass, it always passes, the bond they have forged through that shared darkness is something unbreakable, something sacred. There is one more thing I need to address, because it is something that rarely gets spoken about openly, and the silence around it causes immeasurable damage: the impact on physical intimacy. For many couples, the loss of physical and sexual connection during perimenopause becomes the silent executioner of the relationship. She does not want to be touched, and he feels rejected to his core. He eventually stops reaching for her to protect himself from the pain of being turned away, and she interprets his distance as confirmation that he no longer finds her desirable. Neither of them speaks about it because the vulnerability is too raw, the wound too deep, the fear too close to the center of who they are as a couple. But here is the clinical truth, stripped of all euphemism. The loss of libido during perimenopause is not a reflection of her feelings for you. It is a direct, measurable, physiological consequence of plummeting estrogen and testosterone levels. Yes, women produce and need testosterone too, and when it drops, as it does during perimenopause, desire can vanish almost entirely. She is not choosing to reject you. Her body has literally turned off the neurochemical mechanism that generates desire, and she is often just as devastated and bewildered by this as you are, if not significantly more so, because she may feel that she has lost a fundamental part of her womanhood, her femininity, her identity as a partner and a lover. This is where patience becomes something sacred. This is where tenderness becomes the most potent medicine available. This is where a hand placed gently on her back with absolutely no expectation behind it, a kiss on her forehead with no hidden agenda, a whispered, "I love you" with no strings attached. Those small, quiet gestures become more healing than any therapy. They communicate to her nervous system, on a level far deeper than words or chemistry, that she is safe, that she is loved not for what she can provide or perform, but for who she is. And safety, true, deep, unconditional safety, is the foundation upon which everything else can slowly, carefully begin to rebuild. I have seen something recently that has been genuinely helping couples navigate this specific challenge. The intimacy piece, the reconnection, the slow and tender path back to each other. And it has made a meaningful, observable difference for many of the couples in my care. I have placed that information in the first link in the description and also in the pinned comment below. If anything in what I have shared tonight resonates with where you are right now, I truly encourage you to explore it. Because sometimes the right guidance at the right moment does not just help. It fundamentally changes the entire direction of a relationship that felt like it was ending. I want to leave you with something that I say to every couple who sits across from me during this chapter of their lives, and I mean it from the deepest part of my professional and personal heart. Perimenopause is not the end of your wife. It is not the end of your marriage. It is not the end of love. It is a passage, one of the most difficult, most invisible, most poorly understood, most inadequately supported passages in all of human biology. But it is a passage nonetheless. It has an other side. The storm is real. The pain is real. The confusion is absolutely real. But so is the dawn that follows. And on that other side, I have watched women re-emerge with a clarity, a fierce self-knowledge, a depth of emotional wisdom, and a strength that they never possessed before. I have watched marriages that were brought to their absolute knees by hormonal chaos become the most honest, most tender, most unshakably intimate partnerships I have ever had the privilege of witnessing in my career. Because when two people walk through fire together, real fire, not the metaphorical kind, but the kind that burns away everything except what is true, and they refuse to let go of each other's hands, they forge something that nothing else in this world can create. Something that cannot be broken by biology or time. Your wife did not become a different person. She is becoming. She is in the middle of a transformation she did not ask for and cannot control. And she needs you, more than she has ever needed you, more than she may be able to say, to hold on while the transformation runs its course. She needs you to see past the anger to the fear that lives beneath it, past the coldness to the grief that hides within it, past the distance to the desperate, aching longing that pulses just below its surface. She is in there. The woman you fell in love with is still in there. She is just lost right now, wandering through a hormonal wilderness that she did not choose and cannot navigate alone. So if you are sitting here tonight, wondering whether your marriage is truly over, wondering whether the woman you married is gone forever, wondering whether you should stay or walk away, I am asking you, as someone who has walked this road alongside hundreds of families and has seen what is possible on the other side, please do not make that decision in the middle of the storm. Educate yourself. Talk to her. Find a physician who truly understands hormonal health. Be the person who breaks the silence that has been suffocating both of you. Because the silence is what destroys, not the hormones, not the mood swings, not the tears or the anger or the distance, the silence. And if this reached you at exactly the right moment, if something in these words gave you even the smallest new lens through which to see what is happening in your home and in your heart, then I need you to do two things for me. First, share this with someone who needs to hear it. Send it to a friend, a brother, a father, a colleague, because there are millions of men across this world going through exactly what you are going through right now, and they believe they are completely alone in it, and they are not. Second, subscribe to this channel and stay close, because this conversation is only beginning. There is so much more I want to share with you, about the science behind what she is experiencing, about the treatment options that exist, about how to rebuild connection and trust and intimacy when hormonal chaos has torn them apart. Every single video I create here is built to give you the knowledge and the understanding that the medical system should have provided you and your wife years ago, but never did. You showed up tonight. You searched for answers when most people would have given up searching. You stayed until the very end. That tells me everything I need to know about the kind of man you are and the kind of love you carry. Now take what you have learned here, go to her, and let her know. You see her. You understand, even if only a little, even if only the beginning. That small beginning is enough. That is more than enough. That is everything.